Welcome to Valor and Virtue. I'm Jim Danielson. Today we have with us Staff Sergeant
Thomas Mattison.
Thomas Mattison, United States Marine Corps retired, and we're very happy to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
We'd like to begin just could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to become a Marine?
Well, my mother had to sign for me in April of 1953 to join the Marine Corps up here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I went straight to Paris Island boot camp, and come out of the boot camp, went straight to Area 14, the ITR, and Camp Pendleton, and on an airplane to Korea before I turned 18. And when I got to Korea, we landed in Japan for one day, and then we flew into Busan, Korea. And I had on Marine Corps green winter uniform and a raincoat. And they put us in a 6-by and took us to Pohang Dong in the back of an open, and it was 30 degrees below zero. That's the coldest I ever been in my life. Wow. That Marine Corps green uniform and a raincoat did not do much, I'll tell you that. But I was with MAG 33 at Pohang Dong in Korea. And then when they signed the armistice on the 27th of July, which also was my wife's birthday, we got ribbons and everything for another year. But when MAG 33 was leaving Korea, they went back to El Toro in California. And in the meantime, we stand guard duty every other dang day, and we had an American Marine and a Korean Marine, American Marine and Korean Marine. And I got to be friends with some of the Korean Marines, and they taught me the Korean language. And
Really? Wow.
I got pretty good in a year and something speaking Korean. And most of the command knew it. So we got back to El Toro, and the Sergeant Major called me in his office and said, "We got an opening for the Korean Military Advisory Group back in Korea on the DMZ. Said, do you want to go?" I said, "Send me back." So I went back to Korea. I went to Korea the first time in '53. I didn't get back till '58. I spent almost 5 years, except for a couple of weeks at El Toro. But they sent me right back over there. And I had a wonderful, wonderful time, in the whole area. I mean, it was colder than you know what. And we had some interesting things happen. You know, we was in a little a place where there was a mountain on both sides, and we was in this little valley. And we had foxholes around the top all the way around. And we had the 3-holer bathroom halfway up the hill. And this lieutenant, I don't know why in the world he did it, but I was sergeant of the guard. I can't remember if it was Christmas or New Year's Eve, but it was one of them. And he went up there and put a little C4 in every one of them foxholes and lit it off all the way around. Everybody thought we was under artillery attack. And it wasn't, but thank goodness I got the thing stopped before it went too far. And the next morning, that lieutenant was on an airplane headed back to the United States.
I was going to say, did he ever make captain?
He didn't make captain, I'll guarantee you that. But he almost caused another war. So, that was an exciting time.
Yeah, well, some pranks are not that funny.
You ain't kidding there. But I guarantee you, I could get MASH on the air for another 2 years if they just asked me all the things that were done in the Marine Corps. Because some of them was really hilarious. But I come back from Korea in '58, and lo and behold, I went into Area 14 and base clothing. And somehow or other, the base clothing and the guys at the mess hall had been trading steaks for clothes and clothes for steaks, and CID had locked up the whole damn shooting match.
Now, were you in Korea for the better part of 5 years?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And then we as Captain McBurt, we went in to open up the base clothing, and we had, I can't remember, it was 5 or 7 stores all over Camp Pendleton, clothing stores. And we set it up something different. The Marine Corps I'd never seen anything like this before. And what we did, I had about 6 young ladies, WMs, and I had about 4 or 5 guys, and we had a warehouse, and I had them all earphones. And the stores could call in a requisition for boats and shoes and socks and trousers or whatever they wanted. And the girls would make up a requisition for it. They'd go to the warehouse and pull it. And then 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we'd deliver to all the stores, whatever they needed. And so that worked out real good. But I was also the cashier, so I had to go to every store twice a week and pick up all the money that they had gathered up, leave them their cash, their checks, their change fund, And that was a lot of fun because I had an old raggedy Marine Corps Jeep and just barely would run. And it's a long ways around Camp Pendleton, I'll tell you that. There's an all-day trip to go to all them stores. It took all day.
Didn't you say you were from Alabama?
Yes, sir.
Wait, that's interesting. You're from Alabama, but it sounds like you spent a lot of your time in the Marine Corps on the West Coast.
No, I spent all my time here at Camp Pendleton just about. I mean, at Camp Pendleton for the training, and that's the only time I was out there. And then when I came back from Vietnam, I was there, and I shipped over there, and I went to independent duty. And I was a supply clerk in Augusta, Georgia, for 2nd Truck Company in reserve. And that went over real good. I thought I had a wonderful job, and we were having real good time. And all of a sudden, the recruiter in Augusta, Georgia got sick or something happened to him. I don't really know whatever happened. But the colonel in Atlanta called the captain up there at my CO and said, "Send Mattison to the courthouse. He's now the recruiter." So I got to be the recruiter in Augusta, Georgia for 2.5, 3 years. I never got to go to school or nothing, but I made my quota. And I had this master sergeant come down and give me two days of lessons on how to be a recruiter. I had some interesting things happen to me in the Marine Corps.
That's it. Okay. And you eventually made it up to Lejeune?
Yes. Well, I left there. I went to independent duty in Goose Creek, South Carolina.
Yeah.
On the Polaris missile program. And I done fire watch while they built the building to assembly the first Polaris missile. And we had a great big long pier, and they brought that submarine in. They cut it half in 2 and put 40 feet in the middle of that submarine and loaded the Polaris missiles in it. I was involved in loading the first
They
submarine.
actually extended the length of the submarine.
Yeah,
Wow.
40 feet in the middle of a submarine. They welded all the things in there to put the Polaris missiles in. And we had some interesting things happen there. We had this concertina wire, 2 on the bottom, 1 on top, tied together. And it must have been 300 feet long, a great big long pier out there in the Cooper River. And it was so them submarines could come all the way up the river that far. And this Halligan was this master gunner sergeant, and we had that thing and all us lined up, pulling that concertina wire off. We were going to drop it in the pier. Well, we dropped it on top of a whole bunch of Navy frogmen, and it was under that damn pier, and we didn't know it. And they come out squalling. but they didn't tell us they were going to be down there, But they was making sure there wasn't any explosive or anything under that pier for the submarine to come in. And we dropped that concertina wire on top of them.
Now the submarines come in on the surface?
Yeah, the submarine come in on the surface, and we loaded it on the surface. But that pier was a great big wide pier. It must have been 30, 40 feet wide and 300-400 feet long.
Wow.
It was quite long.
Now, how long were you there?
About 3 years.
So at this point, you'd been in the Marine Corps 10 years, maybe?
Oh, about 10 years. Yeah. And then we left there, and we got orders up here to Camp Lejeune. And that was in the early 60s. And the first time I come to Camp Lejeune. And
So that was your first time here?
yeah.
What did you think of Jacksonville when you got here?
Yeah, I come up here to Camp Lejeune, and the first time I was in 8 engineers, and I run spare parts for 8 engineers. I run spare parts for 9 engineers once too. But I first got there, it's a great big Quonset hut, and they had all these parts in there, and they had nothing identified, just starters and generators and everything you could think about. So I started the process, and even my wife come in and help me.
Wow.
We worked all weekends and everything, and identifying all that material and putting a number on it, and categorizing it and getting it on the shelves in order so we could find something. And I carried the 8 engineers from 70% combat deadline for lack of parts down to less than 2%. So we had organized where we could find all the parts. And back in them days, half of the parts didn't have a federal identification number. They just had a parts number from the manufacturer. They hadn't assigned it to anything else. But an engineer parts room covers all spectrums. It's everything in the utilities for the water, for the electric, for the trucks, for the bulldozers, everything. And the engineers can go in and build a city from scratch.
Wow. So I'm not sure exactly what the right term is, but you need some kind of like an inventory system?
Yes, they didn't have them. Nobody had ever went in from the supply end of it and really done the parts like they should have been to take care of all the trucks and the bulldozers and the generators and the water pumps and all the other things that you have to have parts for.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is early 60s, right?
And that was in the early 60s. But I had a wonderful time in the Marine Corps.
So that was before computers and all
Oh,
that.
yes. And when the first computers come out, I was involved in them. I ended up with a MOS 3042, which is mechanized supply. I went through about 9 generations of computers in the Marine Corps. I started out with a binary system and worked your way up.
Until when?
Until 1973 when I retired.
1973. Yeah, that was 3 years before I signed up.
But
Now, when you retired, did you move here?
yes, I was right here. I worked in Building 1011, 2 tours. I had 7.5 years here during that period when the water was bad.
Sure, yeah.
So, but thank goodness I had my family living off base the whole time. They didn't live on the base. So, but they did go to the commissary and they did drink water when they come on the base and this, that, and the other, But they haven't been affected. All my children have not been affected by the water thing. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's good.
Because they all lived off the base.
Why did you decide to retire here?
Well, for the medical benefits mainly, and also for the environment. It's a good environment, and all the Marines around here, and I when I first retired, I started I'd already built a little mobile home park before I ever retired, and I had 9 rental units when I retired. I couldn't get any Social Security because I made too much damn money when I retired. So I changed clothes in the back of the vehicle, my wife driving, and I was moving mobile homes that afternoon. I went to work for an outfit out of New Bern, Riverside Mobile Home Movers, and 6 weeks later I bought the company. And I had a statewide moving company, and then we affiliated with an outfit out of Little Rock, Arkansas, with nationwide rights. and Colonel McNutt was a transportation officer on Camp Lejeune. And I had worked, we had supply on one side and transportation on the other side in the same building. So I knew all of them before I ever retired. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons I got in the mobile home business, because the master gunnery sergeant in transportation said they needed somebody to help move the mobile homes. And I had bought a little old Navy surplus truck and built me a mobile home toter before I ever got out of the Marine Corps. And I drove it to work. So everybody knew it, about it. And one of the great things about the Marine Corps, they give me 6 weeks of a project transition where we went out and worked at a civilian job and reported, for the last 6 weeks. And believe it or not, I got 2 of those 6 weeks. I went out to Green Industries, old man Green, and they was building mobile homes up here on 17 North. And I went out there and with a purpose of learning everything I could about how to build a mobile home. So I went in the door when the frame come in and done everything they done on the frame, put the plumbing in, and went to the floors, went to the walls, and when they come out the other end, it was a built mobile home. I spent a week in every department till it went out the door. And then I drove that old trailer toter I had. It was rusty and looked like heck, but I drove it to work every day. And finally, the shop foreman asked me if I could move a mobile home. I said, sure. I done moved 2 or 3 and rebuilt them. That's what I used to do. I'd buy 2 mobile homes, I'd fix them all up, I'd set one up and rent it, and I'd sell the other one and get my money back. Then I'd buy 2 more. And that's how I got started. But I wanted to know more about mobile homes. I went through that, and the very first, he said, come on, we're going to take this house to Monkey Junction. I didn't have no idea where Monkey Junction was, but it's down out of Wilmington. So it was a 14 by 70, and we jumped in the truck. I took it to the dealer in Monkey Junction down there and come back, and the foreman told Mr. Green that I could move mobile home just fine. So after that, every morning I'd go in, I'd pick a mobile home up, I'd take it to Winston-Salem, I'd take it somewhere, I'd be back that afternoon. And then the Marine Corps found out I was leaving town, and they told me I couldn't leave Onslow County. So they made me quit doing that. But I didn't know it. I couldn't do it until they I don't know how the Marine Corps found out about it, but they did.
Yeah, somebody ratted you out.
Yeah, somebody ratted me out, probably.
So did you say, what do you think, the Marine Corps is kind of cramping my style? Or?
No. I never thought that, I just done my job, but I had some bad experiences. 2 times in my career, I had a lieutenant and a captain that were pilots. They could take an airplane off real good, and they could fly it real good, but that landing got them because they crashed 2 or 3 airplanes, and they made supply officers out of them. And they didn't want to be supply officers. They wanted to be pilots. And me and them sort of clashed horns, several times, because they didn't want to really do the job. They didn't want to be there. They wanted to be in an airplane.
They want to be in an airplane. Maybe you wouldn't know, but I wonder if those guys ever had to qualify to land on a carrier.
Yeah, I don't know. That scares the hell out of me to even think about it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah. Well, I was in flying squadrons. I was a technician, but when they would do carrier qualifications, you could tell some of these guys are getting nervous.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Well, I was over in Mag 11 in Vietnam in '66, and the mail plane took off at the end of the runway, and I was out shaving at that time. I seen a mail plane take off. So we were right there beside the runway. It didn't get 300, 400 yards off the end of the runway, and they shot the damn thing down. And it took us about 3 months to find that damn machine gun nest. It was underneath a rice paddy. And they had a damn thing where the damn rice paddy don't come up, and the quad 50 caliber machine gun shooting straight up. And after that, all the airplanes that come into the airfield, it come in at 10,000 feet, come straight down to land. And yeah, I mean, it'd make you mess in your britches just to watch it.
Yeah, right, yeah. Gosh.
Just to keep them getting shot down.
Well, I guess the 2 pilots who became supply officers would have struggled with that landing.
Yeah, but the world goes around and round. It don't make any difference.
That's true. Yeah. So, you decided to stay here, and one of the reasons was
medical.
Well, that and Marines.
And the environment, and I had a good job here because I was moving mobile homes, and then that was in 1973 when I started. In 1983, when them kids got blowed up in that building in Beirut,
right? Mm-hmm.
Colonel McNutt was still here, and he called me in his office, and he said he wanted me to move everybody home that owned a mobile home all over the United States on a Class A shipment. I went in and took everything apart, packed it up, took them wherever they wanted to go, and put it back together, including hooking up the water, sewer, and electric, everything on the house, and blocking, cleaning it, and just done everything for them.
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. So these were family members of the Marines who died in Beirut, and they were going to go back to wherever they were from.
Yeah.
And
the last one I moved was Debbie Blankenship to the University of Alabama at Auburn.
Wow.
And it took 5 trailers and trucks, and she had 2 Greyhound dogs, and they had 12 by 12 dog houses. And it took a convoy.
Was it bigger than the trailer?
And she's now singing she's remarried and singing for a Christian group, and they go all over the United States in revivals and stuff. And she comes to the Beirut Memorial every year, and I have too. And I've seen her a whole bunch of times when she comes to the revival. Beautiful voice.
Oh, that's good.
And I knew them, her and her husband, before. That's the only one I personally knew. But I was building a sewage system back in them days too. And they had bought a new mobile home. And Alvin Kidd, a fella in in Hubert, rented him a lot. And he didn't have a sewer system on the lot. He called me up and asked me to come out and build a sewer system and hook a house up for the whole thing. And I went out and put in their sewer system and hooked their house up. So I knew them before he got killed. But that's the only one I knew personally. All the rest of them, I didn't know them, but I moved them wherever they needed to go. And the Beirut Memorial Fund paid me.
Wow. That's, well, I mean, obviously around here, that event is still big.
Oh, yeah.
And certainly will remain that way. But this is a fascinating story of how the Marine Corps looked after the families of those Marines who lost their lives.
Yes, sir. And we've done a lot of good things, throughout the career here. One of my pride and joys is my fossil collection. And this Saturday, I'll be set up at Sturgeon City with my fossil collection. I've got 2 8-foot tables full of fossils. But my pride and joy is a 13-inch oyster dug up in Sneath Ferry about 35 years ago, building a sewer system. And they petrified, but the top comes off perfectly.
Wow. And
Smithsonian Institute is real jealous of that one. But that's how big oysters used to get in New River. 13 inches longer than a sheet of newspaper.
So they don't get that long anymore because they're not in the water that long anymore? Like
Well,
there's more and more fishing of them.
the water is not clean enough to allow them to live long enough to get that big.
Ah, really? Is that what it is?
That's the biggest feature. You know, people in France furnish all of the seafood, shellfish food for all of Europe, and they got enough political clout that nobody don't mess their water up. And they ride around in a brand new Mercedes or BMW pickup truck, not a rusty pickup truck like we do in eastern North Carolina, but we don't have the political clout to keep our waters clean. And this is one of the things that I have dedicated my life to try to do. And I raised so much cane after the hogwaste spill in '95 that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Appointed me the 36th riverkeeper in the world. And I went on to make riverkeeper emeritus. So I'm a riverkeeper for life.
Nice.
And I'm mighty proud of that. And we've done some outstanding things. We won the lawsuit against the corporate hog industry of North Carolina in 2008-17, worth $545 million. And because of that, we won the appeal in 2021. And there was 57 individuals that was in that lawsuit that got all the money, except what the attorneys got. And they got a bunch. But all 57 of them, the lawyers for the corporate hog industry tried to say that it was the sewage system on their properties that was causing the odor. It wasn't the hog farm. So I went out and certified 57 houses as having a perfectly good sewer system with no odor. You know, and I wrote a letter of certification for all of those for that lawsuit.
You know, I remember decades ago, a long, long time ago, driving around this part of North Carolina, you could smell
Oh yeah,
the hogs. You could, I mean, it was thick in the air.
we've got 9 million hogs in North Carolina
Wow.
every year, and that annual production, 9 million. That's more. And each hog produces about 10 to 12 times more waste than a human.
Wow.
So, and we don't have any kind of facilities to take care of that waste except a hole in the ground. And every time a hurricane comes, the whole damn thing runs out all over the place.
Now, is that what you're talking about with the quality of the water that,
Yes.
that the oysters grow?
Yes. Yes, we've had hurricanes where millions of hogs drowned. I had a $5,000 grant to fly after a hurricane and take pictures of dead hogs and all that. I took a picture of a hog about 2 miles at sea with a shark eating it, and I sent it to Robert F. Kennedy, and he got all those pictures that I took. I had a $5,000 grant to hire airplanes, and I got a photographer that works for Daily News to go with me all the time, and I had him doing the pictures. So we got some good evidence.
Wow. I mean, so how has it changed over the years?
Sir?
How has this issue changed over the years?
Well, it really hadn't. The hog industry paid that $545 million and did not change a single thing they're doing. They're still doing the same thing, and it's absolutely crazy because it's not a sustainable industry, and they've been doing it for 30 years. But there's two big factors that everybody in the world needs to know about. And the first one is overabundance of nutrients. We're raising all these hogs. We're bringing corn in from the Midwest by train car loads. And we're feeding these hogs this. We got the largest hog killing facility in the world on the Cape Fear River, and the poor people in Wilmington are drinking water out of it. And even the Indians knew to go downstream to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, sure.
And we ain't figured that out either. But the pitiful fact is that Mother Nature is out of balance. And Mother Nature is not going to stay out of balance forever. And there's no telling what will happen when nature decides we've done messed up long enough. The other thing that's really, really bad is they're feeding these animals antibiotics for non-therapeutic reasons, and therefore they're creating diseases like MRSA, and Sergeant Major Joe Who had it, and I had to get on a uniform, whites and all this mess, even go in and see him. That's how dangerous it is.
Wow.
And we're creating diseases that we have no medicine for because of what we're doing on our food source. Because the residue of those antibiotics that they're feeding those animals for non-therapeutic reasons is in those animals' bodies, and you're eating it. So what's it doing to you?
Yeah. Did you quit eating pork?
I don't eat pork.
Really?
I do not eat pork, period.
Do you know if that kind of thing goes on with chickens and cows?
Well, it did for chickens for a long time, but then finally the antibiotics no longer work with chickens, so they quit. They quit giving antibiotics to chickens and turkeys. They no longer do that, but they're still doing it for the hogs.
Wow.
But a hog's body is very, very similar to a human body. Very similar.
Yeah, I've read some years ago that heart valve transplants sometimes will use hogs.
Yeah.
Wow. You want to talk a little bit about your fossils?
Oh, yeah. And this Saturday we'll also be doing site evaluations for children free of charge by the Lions Club. I'm a life member in the Lions Club too, and we are trying to help the children. There's 6 different conditions of the eyes that a child can have that allows the brain to look at one eye and forget about the other one. But if we can find those children before they reach the age of 7, the doctors can do something about it. But after they reach the age of 7, the children's brain is all set in motion so that the doctors lose the ability to do anything. So we must find those children that suffer from that. And there's 6 different conditions, like I said, that lets the brain look at one eye and forget about the other one.
So this condition is a brain issue.
It's a brain issue because it lets the brain look at the good eye and forget about the bad eye.
Oh, okay. Okay. So there's actually a problem with one of the eyes.
Yes, there's a problem with one of the eyes. And we got some new equipment now. I can be several yards away from a child and raise the camera up and take a picture of the child's face. I got a little printer. I point the camera at the printer and hit print, and it prints out the condition of that child's eyes. And it's 2 forms. One says passed, so we put that on the paper and give it back to the parent, and the child's eyes are good. The other one says the child needs to see a physician or a doctor. So we put that on the form and we give it back to the parents and encourage them to carry their child to a doctor.
So this is a method you're just sort of, you don't have any particular way of identifying other than bringing lots of children in and quickly examining each one?
This is a screening process to find those children that need help. Yeah, and that's all we're doing, just screening.
Do you have a sense of what proportion or how frequently you find a child who needs help?
Yes, we end up with somewhere between 15 and 25%.
Gosh, that sounds high.
It depends on the neighborhood, and the dynamics. Some neighborhoods are real high, some are not so high.
Okay.
In some neighborhoods, children are taken better care of than in other neighborhoods.
Sure.
So they've already found the problem. So, but we need to get it to all, all of them. And that's what we're going to be doing this Saturday. It'll be for anybody that comes in. The paper says from 6 months to 7 years, but we'll do it right up to 12th grade.
Now, people find out about this through...
I've got publications all over town. I walked up and down some of the stores in the shopping center and give them a flyer, every store. I've done a lot of legwork.
Oh boy, it sounds like... Now, do you do this? You're doing this on an ongoing basis?
Well, this is a new one. I've done it one time. I had 7 children, and one of them needed glasses. And that was for the homeschool people.
Oh,
I'm trying to reach out to them. I'm trying to reach out to kindergartens. I'm trying to reach out to anybody that's got children that need it. And this is for the general public. They can come in and look at my fossils, and they can get their eyes checked at the same time. And we'll be set up all day Saturday at this coming Saturday, the 25th, no, the 22nd of this month. Now we're going to start doing it at churches and civic organizations.
Oh, nice.
That has a big to-do, and they want to have a whole lot of children there, and we'll set up and do it for anybody that asks us to.
Very good. Well, I mean, I think people who are interested in the work of Carolina Museum of the Reno-Gray Civic Institute would say, sir, this is a true act of citizenship. This is wonderful.
Yes, sir.
And the kids really like the fossils too?
Oh, they love it, My only problem is trying to get them not to reach over and grab something and break it. But that's an ongoing problem. It always will be.
Well,
they always want to touch. But I carry a whole bunch of conch shells. I got a bunch of them, and they can hold it up to the ear and hear the ocean roar. So I got a bunch of them for that, and I let them break them. I don't care.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because I got a bunch of them.
There's a practical joke in there somewhere, like you could put a little transmitter in the conch, and when the kid puts it up to his ear,
you don't have to put a thing in it. Believe it or not, you can hold that conch shell up and you can hear the ocean roar.
Yeah.
Yes, all of them. I don't know how it does it, but it does. It works.
Well, now speaking of fossils, would you mind telling us about that tooth?
That's a megalodon. And,
that's not a shark?
No, that's a shark. It's a megalodon shark. And this particular one, it was 40 feet long, but his mother was 65 feet long.
Wow.
And this is one of the largest creatures ever lived in the world, but they're supposed to have been extinct for many, many years. And about 5 or 10 years ago, half of a whale showed up on a beach in South America, and the only animal in the world can bite a whale half in two is one of these. And I don't know how that whale got half in two if he didn't run into one of these. So we don't really know what's on the bottom of that damn ocean out there. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of the ocean.
Do you have any sense of how old that tooth is?
I have never had it appraised, but I tell all the ladies that this is my secret way of getting them to play with my chest. but it was dredging up in the harbor at Morehead City, and the guy on the dredge had it, and he wanted some beer money, and I wanted a shark tooth. Well, he drank up beer money, and I still got the shark tooth.
So you had it all...
This is about the 4th one I've had, but I've been wearing a shark tooth for 35 years.
Yeah, well, I remember meeting you. It was an oyster roast a couple of years ago, and you had that on. I thought, gosh, I'd like to talk to you about that.
Yeah, I do community oyster roast for the charity. And we just done the 23rd one for Carolina Community College, and we've raised a whole lot of money for them. And Sergeant Major Joe Hoole, for the last 20-something years, has always got me a working party from the Marine Corps, students waiting on the classes to start. and they're my working party. And then I have whoever I'm doing it for, the college or Tryon Palace or whoever it is, write them a letter for community service that goes in their record book.
Yes, he's told me that happens. That's a good thing. So do the Marines who get that kind of a letter in their record, do they get some kind of benefit from this?
Well, they get their record book, and when they got promotion, they've got community service in there, and somebody else doesn't. Guess who's going to get promoted?
That's right, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I guess you feed them too?
Yeah. No, yes, I got to feed them too.
Yeah,
yeah, they're Marines. You got to feed them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you say you've had that 35 years?
No, not this particular one, but I've been wearing a shark tooth for 35 years.
Okay, all right.
Another thing about these shark teeth, you'll find a lot of them half and two. Well, the Indians use them as a tool to scrape deer skin to make clothes.
Wow.
So you find a lot of them, they broke half in two so they can use both halves to scrape deer skin to make clothes.
That's interesting.
But there's a lot to know about it. I got one piece of, I thought it was a black rock, but the professor told me it was a piece of woolly mammoth tusk.
Really?
It's petrified ivory.
I was listening to these guys talking not that long ago about a place in Montana where there are lots of dinosaur remains.
Oh, yeah.
And they're finding horns and bones that still have moist, pliant tissue in them.
Yeah. Yes. Especially as the ices melt, we're finding woolly mammoth, whole woolly mammoth, been froze for millions of years.
Wow.
And they're recovering the whole damn thing. It's still all the flesh, all the skin, everything.
That's interesting. So that suggests, doesn't it, that, well, maybe it doesn't, that they died fast.
Yeah. Yes, and, this world is changing all the time. It's been changing forever.
That is true. I mean, that sort of changes the static state. It's a change always happens. I mean, in fact, I imagine when you first came here, Jacksonville was not much to shout about.
Some of the 4-lane highways were dirt roads.
Yeah. But there was still a real sort of Marine Corps community here.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's the most dedicated community to service of this nation there is in the world, in the United States. Our citizens, especially at Beirut thing, they planted all them trees up and down the road out there, and we have the Beirut Memorial, and pretty soon we're going to have about 26, 28 acres of memorials over there. It's going to be a tourist attraction for this whole area forever. But
we have no privacy.
Yeah, that makes a difference. That makes a difference. But I'm really looking forward to it. And the one thing that we really have not concentrated on, and I wish we could, I wish I could live long enough to see a Korean memorial. We don't have a Korean memorial, and we don't have anybody working on a Korean memorial, and we do desperately need that. We have very few Korean Marine veterans left.
I'm going to break protocol here for just a moment and ask our fearless leader, are we going to have exhibits for Korea? So the museum will have exhibits for Marines who served in Korea. But a real memorial, I guess, would be a good thing.
Yeah. But I'd love to see us have something for the Korean in the thing, like for the Vietnam Memorial and the Corpsman's Memorial,
yeah,
and the Moffett Point Memorial, we need a Korean memorial.
Have you ever been over there and thought about where it might be sited?
Yes, I've talked to Sergeant Major Joe Hoole about it, and there's 3 spaces left over there.
Oh, okay.
That's the only spaces left. But and we also need a some of the latest ones that like that, the ones that we had over there. What do they call it when we had in '91 when they went into Kuwait?
Oh, right, sure. Yeah, is that the first desert?
Yeah. When I think that our president made a serious mistake when he stopped that war when he did. We should have went ahead, let us go ahead and wipe them damn people out, and we would have solved a whole lot of damn problems. Because we just about annihilated the army there in, what, 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah.
Where they had that convoy headed out.
It was attacked from the air, right?
Yeah. Well, they'd come out of Kuwait, headed back up there. But we need a memorial for that, and Desert Storm and all that stuff over there. But we haven't started on those yet. But pretty soon, that whole 20-something acres is going to be full of memorials.
And a museum.
And a museum. Thank goodness.
Yes, thank goodness. And thank you for this excellent conversation. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And, I've been trying to help Sergeant Major Joe Hoole for the last 23 years.
Well, he speaks well and often of you, and that's a good thing. So.
Yeah. And thank you guys for having me. It's been a wonderful time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.